Hubris Syndrome. It is a psychological pattern often used to interpret the behavior of powerful leaders like Julius Caesar. You've probably been put in charge of something small at least once in your life. A group project, managing a shift at work, organizing a family trip. At first, you ask for input. But slowly you realize it's just faster if you make the decisions. People start deferring to you. You stop hearing the word no, and your brain, without you even noticing, begins to quietly rewire itself. You start to feel this isolating certainty that your first instinct is always the correct one. That shift in reality is called hubris syndrome. It's an acquired personality change that happens when someone holds power for too long without accountability. What makes it different from just being arrogant is the absolute loss of context. You aren't choosing to ignore advice. Your brain literally loses the capacity to perceive other people as equals. It's a quiet tragedy. The very thing that elevates someone to lead is usually the first thing that power burns away, leaving them completely alone in a crowded room. Cold empathy. Political historians often describe figures like Augustus Caesar as unusually skilled at understanding the motivations of allies and rivals alike, a skill rooted in this very concept. You're sitting across from someone who is upset. Maybe they're crying over a mistake they made, or venting about a heavy loss. You can read the tension in their shoulders, the shake in their voice. You understand the mechanics of their sadness perfectly. But inside your own chest, there is nothing. No answering warmth, no shared pain. Just a quiet, involuntary calculation of how to handle the situation to get what you need. That sensation is called cold empathy. It's the ability to cognitively understand another person's emotions without actually feeling them, making it the defining trait of history's most effective manipulators. What makes it different from just being detached is how deeply observant it is. You are paying perfect attention, not to comfort them, but to map out their vulnerabilities. It is the architecture of control at its most intimate level. There is something uniquely unsettling about being perfectly understood by someone who doesn't care about you at all. Systemic solipsism. Some scholars use this idea to describe how leaders like Napoleon Bonaparte could knowingly march hundreds of thousands of men into the freezing Russian winter. You're playing a strategy game, staring down at a map of tiny territories and moving pieces across the board to secure a win. You don't think about the individual pieces. You don't wonder if the little plastic figures are tired or afraid. They are just resources. If you sacrifice 10 to gain an advantage, you don't feel a sting of guilt. You just feel the satisfaction of a winning strategy taking shape. That disconnect is called systemic solipsism. It's the psychological state where a ruler ceases to view their subjects as conscious human beings and instead sees them as abstract numbers on a ledger. What makes it different from just being ruthless is the genuine absence of malice. A ruler sending thousands to their limits isn't doing it because they enjoy suffering. They are doing it because, in their mind, those thousands aren't real anymore. It's the ultimate isolation. When you zoom out far enough to see the whole world, you lose the ability to see the people in it. The siege mentality. It's a psychological pattern often discussed when examining the paralyzing paranoia that defined the final years of leaders like Joseph Stalin. You've had one of those days where everything goes wrong, and you convince yourself that the universe is actively working against you. You walk into a room and hear people laughing. Your immediate, involuntary thought is that they are laughing at you. Every whispered conversation feels like a plot. Every piece of constructive criticism feels like a hidden attack. Your heart rate stays slightly up, your jaw is tight, and you are constantly scanning the room for the next threat. That exhausting hyper-vigilance is called the siege mentality. When amplified by absolute authority, it becomes the driving psychological force behind history's most devastating purges. What makes it different from just normal anxiety is the absolute certainty of betrayal. The panic isn't about if someone will turn on you, it's about when. And so, the only logical defense is to strike first. Power doesn't bring peace. Most of the time, it just buys you a taller castle wall to pace behind, waiting for the shadows to move. Megalothymia. Political philosophers have used this concept to explain why rulers like Ramesses II pursued monumental legacies, carving their names into every stone in Egypt. You're walking past a massive monument or a towering building with someone's name slapped across the stone in giant heavy letters. You look up at it, and for a second you try to imagine the sheer scale of ego required to demand that kind of permanence. The desperate, clawing need to ensure that hundreds of years from now, strangers will be forced to look at that name and acknowledge that this person mattered more than they do. That hunger for supreme recognition is called megalothymia. It's the psychological engine that built empires and burned cities to the ground simply to leave a mark. What makes it different from just wanting to be remembered is the necessity of absolute dominance. It's not enough to be loved or respected. The architecture of control must be absolute, weaving its way into the very thoughts and daily habits of the people, ensuring their submission outlasts the ruler's own life. In the end, it's just a tragic fight against time. A desperate attempt to build something loud enough to drown out the quiet realization that, eventually, history forgets us all.